The moment the stroller hit the water, it wasn't a huge Hollywood splash, you know? It was this sickening, shallow slap that echoed off the tile, and the sun visor just floated there, perfectly still, like a little white flag of surrender. I was still halfway through saying, "Look, Mrs. Sterling, please, let's just talk." But my dress shoes were already filling with that cold, chemical-smelling pool water, and I was moving. Instinct, pure and simple, because my 9-month-old daughter, Chloe, was submerged. I scooped her out in one frantic motion. She came up sputtering and absolutely furious. That primal, betrayed rage only a soaked baby can muster. Her tiny face scrunched up tight enough to crack walnuts. And there she was, standing dry on the deck above me. The president of the Blackwood Creek Homeowners Association, Veronica Sterling, looking down with this glassy, cold-as-ice satisfaction, and she just sniffed and said, "A clear violation of Article 7, Section B. The rules apply to everyone. Mr. Davies." The wail of a distant siren answered her, getting louder with every single terrifying second. "My name is Ethan Davies, and before that day I was what you'd call a non-entity homeowner. I was the guy who politely waved from his driveway, the one you saw grilling a couple of steaks at dusk, but otherwise completely invisible. My wife, Sarah, and I moved to Blackwood Creek for the quiet cul-de-sacs and those absurdly picturesque live oak trees dripping with Spanish moss. Sarah teaches high school history. She comes home smelling faintly of old paper and dry erase marker residue. We just wanted peace, you know. We wanted a place to raise Chloe without all the city noise. Our neighborhood's unofficial monarch, the woman who ran our HOA like her own medieval fiefdom, was Veronica Sterling. She was the kind of person who pronounced the word covenants like she was about to pull out a crown and demand you kneel. Her power wasn't based on charm or even competence, just a silver whistle on a lanyard, a meticulously organized clipboard, and an almost supernatural talent for turning normal neighborly concerns into a full-scale inquisition. Here's the thing I didn't advertise. The quiet little detail I never put on my mailbox or brought up at block parties. I'm actually the county sheriff. I run the whole operation, but I don't lead with that. I lead with lawn care tips and keeping my nose out of other people's business because I get enough drama at work. It started small, the way this nonsense always does. Veronica began leaving these absurd, official-looking notes on our door, printed on HOA letterhead, with her name embossed like she was royalty. Stroller wheels track organic debris onto community sidewalks. Constitutes a trip hazard. Another time, infant pool flotation device not explicitly pre-approved by the Architectural Review Committee. My personal favorite, though, was the one that read, "Infant vocalizations exceed acceptable decibel threshold after 7 p.m. on non-holiday weeknights." I mean, seriously? She started photographing our front patio plants like they were suspects in a lineup, zooming in on a lavender bush that dared to grow, apparently, 8 inches too high according to some obscure subclause nobody had read since 1993. Then came her big, dramatic move. She called an emergency board meeting and rammed through a ban on what she called non-compliant wheeled carts at the pool, citing a clause about utility dollies that was written back when I was still wearing Zubaz pants. A few days later, the board's group chat, yes, they had a secret group chat, leaked thanks to a very nervous, very oblivious treasurer who hit reply all to the entire neighborhood list. In those messages, Veronica referred to Sarah as the chalk duster and me as the invisible man. She bragged about her taming campaign before the summer social, planning to make an example out of the new family who thought they could just exist however they wanted. I read every word twice, felt my jaw tighten so hard I thought I might chip a tooth, and then, because of the badge in my pocket, I took a deep breath and let it go. I reread the HOA bylaws. I cross-referenced them with the municipal code. I added an extra industrial-strength safety latch to our expensive stroller. I kept my head down. Saturday afternoon arrived with that perfect sun-drenched, chlorine-scented weather. Neighbor kids were doing cannonballs off the high dive. We got to the pool with Chloe strapped safely in her stroller, wearing this floppy, ridiculously oversized sun hat. Veronica spotted us the nanosecond we stepped through the gate. She materialized from behind a cabana like a spirit of pure neighborhood angst, flanked by two timid board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Her silver whistle glinted. She marched straight up to us, her voice sharp and loud enough for everyone to hear. "Mr. Davies, that stroller is a prohibited object and is not permitted on this property. You are in violation." I stayed calm, my voice even, measured. I told her we'd simply park the stroller by the bench out of the way and carry Chloe. Simple solution. No drama needed. But Veronica Sterling, I realized, wasn't interested in solutions. She was interested in dominance. She stepped forward with a look of absolute, righteous conviction, gripped the stroller handle with both hands, and said, dead serious, like she was quoting the Gettysburg Address, "If it enters the pool area, it will not be staying on the deck." Before I could process the genuine, unhinged intent in her eyes, she pivoted on her heel and shoved, hard. The stroller rolled the final few feet, bumped against the concrete coping, and dropped. That splash. I'll never forget it. Sarah screamed, a high, thin sound that cut through the noise of the pool party. I didn't think. I just jumped, suit pants, dress shoes, keys, badge, everything, and had Chloe out in less than 5 seconds. She was coughing, wailing, shaking with terror, but she was fine. No physical injuries, only absolute terror, and my heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it might punch its way out of my chest. When I looked up, Veronica was standing there, dry as a bone, trying to smooth her dress. "A regrettable accident," she announced to the suddenly silent crowd. Everyone remained calm. This was a safety demonstration gone. Regrettably wrong. But half the pool deck had their phones out. People were filming. I could see the shock on their faces, the way they were backing away from Veronica like she had just sprouted horns. I wrapped Chloe in a thick towel, her tiny body shaking uncontrollably against mine, and handed her carefully to Sarah. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out the leather case, and held up my sheriff's badge. Veronica's face went sheet white first, then this angry, blotchy red like a thermometer about to shatter. She sputtered, pointing a shaking, accusatory finger at me. "That's an abuse of authority. You can't use your position against me. This is an HOA matter." I slowly tucked the badge away. My voice was quiet, deadly steady. "Right now," I said, looking her directly in the eye, "I am a parent. I'm also a primary witness to the assault of a child. I am recusing myself completely." I pulled out my personal phone and called it in, telling the dispatcher exactly who I was and making it clear I needed the state police, not my own deputies, to avoid even the slightest appearance of conflict of interest. The troopers arrived within 10 minutes. They walked into every investigator's dream scene: 12 highly motivated witnesses, 4 different camera angles, and Veronica Sterling, actively trying to seize a teenager's phone, claiming she had HOA authority to confiscate evidence. The trooper, a sharp young woman I'd worked with on a few joint task forces, calmly informed Veronica that no, she absolutely did not have that authority, and she needed to step back immediately. They separated everyone and took statements. The pool lifeguard, a college kid with a clipboard of his own, handed over incident logs showing Veronica had been written up twice before for aggressive confrontations. Then, the neighbor 2 houses down, bless her heart, volunteered her Ring camera footage from earlier that morning. Clear as a bell, she was on her porch, practicing her little speech into her own reflection. In the video, she says, loud and chillingly clear, "I'll teach the stroller man a lesson he won't forget." The phrase child endangerment started showing up in a lot of hushed conversations, and I watched the color drain from Veronica's face. She finally understood not just that she'd lost, but what she had actually done. 20 minutes later, Veronica Sterling was placed in handcuffs, right there on the pool deck, her silver whistle still hanging around her neck like a participation trophy from a game she had just devastatingly forfeited. The charges came fast, and they were thorough: battery, child endangerment, criminal mischief, and interference with reporting for the phone grab. She kept sputtering about bylaws and covenants and rules, her voice getting higher and more desperate. The state trooper, stone-faced and professional, pointed at the shallow end of the pool where Chloe's stroller was now being fished out. "Ma'am," she said with the kind of exhausted patience that comes from years of dealing with deeply entitled people. "That's a baby, not a wheelbarrow." The emergency HOA board meeting happened 3 days later. Attendance spilled out of the clubhouse and onto the lawn. The community's insurance representative dialed in remotely, and in a tone that was both cheerful and absolutely devastating, confirmed that intentional acts of violence were explicitly not covered under the community's liability policy. The board went utterly pale. Someone set up a projector and played all the videos in sequence. Veronica's shove, my frantic splash, Chloe's tiny, terrified face. The vote to remove Veronica from the board and issue a formal censure passed with only one abstention. They also immediately passed what they started calling the Chloe Amendment. Strollers permitted at the pool. Period. No more nonsense. No more obscure clauses from decades past. 6 weeks later, I sat in Judge Thompson's courtroom and watched justice get served with a kind of clinical precision that only comes from a judge who simply will not tolerate performative cruelty. Veronica stood at the defense table in a miserable gray suit, her lawyer beside her looking like he was actively praying for the sweet release of death. Judge Thompson didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Veronica Sterling was sentenced to 18 months of supervised probation, mandatory parenting classes, mandatory anger management counseling, 300 hours of community service, and a 5-year ban from serving on any HOA board in the county. The community service assignment came with its own perfect karmic irony. Veronica would be supervising toddler swim lessons at the very Blackwood Creek pool, working as a towel runner. Under the direct authority of the pool manager, she had once tried to get fired. When the judge asked if she understood the terms, Veronica's voice came out small, broken, finally stripped of all its authority. "Yes, Your Honor." She looked at me once as the bailiff led her out, and I looked back with nothing but calm, professional detachment. Because in the end, her precious little mantra came back to bite her. Rules are rules. So, here's my question to you, the community. In this entire escalating saga, from the ridiculous note about baby noises to the moment she shoved that stroller, who was more at fault for the escalation, the person who knew the rules and chose to push them to the breaking point, or the quiet homeowner who had the power to stop her immediately but chose to let the process play out. And what's the craziest, most unhinged thing your HOA has ever done? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.